Hi, and welcome to Cannabis in Context. I'm your host, Dr. Lucas McCann. I'm the CSO of CannDelta, and today we've got a special guest. I'm joined by Reid from Cova Software. Say hi, Chris.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming. We're going to be telling you everything you need to know to start your cannabis retail dispensary in the state of Minnesota. As you might know, we are right in the middle of a license application round. We're very excited about how things have been going so far. And with cannabis retail being a lottery, it's a great opportunity to get an application in and win a license to open up to 5 cannabis retail dispensaries anywhere you like in the state. As I mentioned, my name is Dr. Lucas McCann. I'm the CSO and co-founder at CannDelta, so that's Chief Science Officer. I oversee all the scientific projects and provide business strategy for all of our clients. We've been in the cannabis business since 2018, and in that time, we've helped launch well over 300 businesses, half of which are cannabis retail dispensaries. My background's in medicinal organic chemistry, but I bring a background to product commercialization, product testing, licensing, and most importantly, retail operations, and operations across all aspects of the industry. I was a former federal government employee from the Controlled Substances Division and left to work in the cannabis industry full time. Chris, why don't you give us a little intro on yourself?
Yeah, happy to. Thank you. So my name's Reid. I'm head of sales and partnerships at Cova Software. We've been in the cannabis space as a business since 2016 with operations or operating retailers since 2017. So took a little bit to get some folks on board, and then we've been rolling ever since. Cova is the second largest point of sale across North America, specific to the cannabis space, and we come from a parent company that services about 80% of the cellular retailers across North America. So come from a good background. We've got some good stock. Personally, very passionate about the cannabis industry. My family's been involved in the industry since before I have. So technically, I'm second generation cannabis. And very excited to be here today to talk about what's going on in Minnesota. It's a really, really exciting market.
We're looking forward to your insight, and again, thanks for coming.
Cheers.
So, a little bit about CannDelta before I hand it back over to Chris. We are a team of consultants that focus in the cannabis space. We're a woman-owned, minority-owned company of business strategists, regulatory experts, and scientists. We've been helping folks since 2018 in that cannabis space, and over 350 businesses have been successfully launched internationally. That's across the country and overseas. We've helped launch small businesses, and we've worked with even up to publicly traded companies. We've been featured in a few publications listed here, like Forbes, High Times, and MJ Our clients span the range of the industry, so we work all the way from the production side for cultivators and manufacturers down to retail dispensaries. The bulk of the projects that we've worked on happen to be retail dispensaries because they're relatively easy to open up on a smaller budget, much more accessible for the general public to be able to pursue as a new entrepreneurial endeavor. And there's certainly a lot more of them than there are cultivators or manufacturers. Just to provide some context, in the last round in Minnesota in summer 2024, 66% of the cannabis applications were denied by the OCM for insufficient documents. That's a big concern. Minnesota's got one of the toughest licensing applications in the state. It's a high barrier to entry. The fees aren't necessarily that high compared to some states, and it also is a lottery. So in terms of the application history in the summer, that's 1,169 applications rejected for the following 3 reasons: incomplete applications where some information was not provided, multiple submissions with the same true parties of interest, or ownership that wasn't declared on a cap table. These challenges are relatively easy to fix if you know what you're doing. These legal challenges that came as a result of the 66% rejection led to effectively the last round lottery being scrapped and a new general application window along with a social equity window happening basically as we speak. To provide some context of where we're at, legalization happened in Minnesota on May 30th, 2023, and the social equity window closed on January 30th of 25. It is the Office of Cannabis Management who oversees Minnesota's cannabis industry. They will be reviewing, accepting, and approving and issuing the licenses. The economic projections for Minnesota are relatively high, reaching 1.5 billion or close to it by 2029. And in terms of the current status, Commercial cannabis sales are probably set to begin, I would say, end of 2025 or Q1 of 2026 to be realistic. The forecasted market size is undeniable. The amount that the recreational cannabis market brings to the Minnesota's cannabis economy is substantial and more than noteworthy, reaching estimates of about 1.4 billion by 2029. This is a huge amount that recreational cannabis will be bringing on top of the already existing and operating medical cannabis market. In terms of where we're at in the application process now, social equity window closed last month. The application window is open until March 14th. After that time, it closes and closes for good. We don't know when or if that application window will open again. So if you're interested in applying, it's very important to get an application in, completed, submitted, and paid for by the deadline. If you have any questions about that, Chris or I would love to chat with you about it. In terms of license availability, you've seen our masterclass on the micro and meso business, which also allows for some component of retail. But speaking specifically today, the retailer license is a lottery license that allows for 75 licenses and 75 licenses for social equity and 75 licenses for the general application pool, meaning 150 applicants will be awarded these licenses, and each of those applicants will be able to open up to 5 cannabis retail dispensaries. For the timeline for cannabis businesses, you start the process with licensing. Not every state does this, but in Minnesota, this is the case. So here, you must prepare business plans, financials, and all the regulatory submissions that go in as part of your license application. And then you also have to ensure compliance with the licensing requirements. Once you're issued a license, either through lottery or through the being awarded an uncapped license type, like a microbusiness, you begin looking for property, getting your municipal approvals, and starting the build-out phase. The build-out phase is where you'd want to design and construct your facility or your store to meet industry standards. You'd want to then start speaking to vendors and figure out who are the people that you'd like to work with and what are the technologies that you might need to implement in your store to be compliant. Everything from security to point of sale will be a very important topic of conversation for you at this time. And then your final inspection, the OCM comes by and checks everything off and makes sure that you've fully completed all of the requirements under the license application and under the regulations before you can begin operations. Once that final inspection's passed, including demonstrating knowledge and operations of a compliant point of sale system that integrates with the state's track and trace software, you'll be able to open up your doors and conduct your first transaction. The initial application can be daunting, which includes several different kinds of components that will require updating as you move through your conditional phase. Some of these documents, not limited to, but do include a regulatory business plan, security plan, operations compliance plan, employee training plan, business cap table, and SOPs. SOPs are standard operating procedures that show how you will handle certain situations surrounding quality assurance, inventory control, storage, diversion prevention, and accounting and tax compliance. In fact, there is a huge emphasis on accounting and tax compliance in the industry, as this is really the driving force for legalization in Minnesota. To highlight about some aspects of the application. Now, a business plan is required, but it's not the typical business plan that some people might be considering. There is a business plan that would be used to attract investors. This one markets or highlights the market potential, the potential for revenue in a particular area, and demonstrates the time it takes to generate an ROI. This includes very detailed financial projections and growth strategies like marketing and advertising. These are typically persuasive, market-focused, and profit-driven. What you'll actually be submitting as part of your application is a regulatory business plan, which ensures compliance with licensing and legal requirements, has a strong focus on security, inventory tracking, operations, community impact, and should include basic financial data, as well as ensuring that the activities that you're looking to conduct are permitted under the license type that you are applying for. These are structured, technical, and compliance-driven documents. Now, when it gets to the build-out phase, that's where a lot of the important aspects have to come into place that involve the interface of hardware and technology. First off is security. There are certain very strict visual surveillance requirements to ensure that people coming in and out of the store are being effectively recorded. You've got cameras around the entrances and exits of all the store, any place where cannabis might be present, as well as customers, and any sales transactions might occur. You'll need secure locking mechanisms on entry points and some kind of access control to demonstrate that you know who's coming in and out of the store at what times. Typically, we'd use something like rights of least privilege when talking about something like a secured storage, or what people colloquially refer to as a vault, where cannabis products are stored. And you'll need a certain number of employees present at the store at all times during regular operating hours. Lighting can be very important. Interior and exterior lighting must be maintained for security. And in addition to lighting, it's also important to discuss things like uninterrupted power supplies and backup in the event of an outage. Another component is how you'll actually be displaying the product and to whom. Retail areas have to be designated for customer access. There are samples that are allowed in jars or cases, but not necessarily for sale, that demonstrate maybe the visual appearance or even aroma of a particular product, but also limit access. And then all other cannabis products must be locked away in either locked drawers or a cannabis secured storage area. Here's an example of a cannabis CBD store from New York City that we helped to convert into an actual licensed cannabis retail dispensary. There were a few elements when we walked into the store that made this a little bit easier to work with than a common store. They already had display cases. However, we did have to eliminate some of the sight lines for products from the outside to the inside of the store. They had a legacy security system with many different kinds of cameras that weren't well integrated into their technology, and they didn't have an integrated point of sale system for proper inventory tracking. It was much more transactional based, like when you walk into a convenience store and they give you an unitemized slip. Typical layouts for a cannabis retail dispensary involve several key areas. We want some kind of entrance in which we can have age gating occur. That is, making sure that anyone who enters the store is of the age and that their ID is verified. They usually enter into a sales floor which would have complete visual surveillance coverage, be able to peruse certain kinds of display cases that provide additional security measures, and sometimes feature locked drawers underneath them. They'd approach the back of the store where the point of sale would happen. The transactions would occur. And then typically the area directly behind that is where we would see some kind of cannabis storage area. We like to, in some cases, where we can, eliminate the sight lines from the front of the store to the back of the store. We do this by employing either dumbwaiters or pass-throughs to allow for the safe transfer of cannabis from orders being picked in the back of the store to the front. Further, we also like to implement some security measures in the secure storage area so that those that might be working in inventory can keep an eye on what's happening in the front of the store. This helps to manage product flow and increase security and awareness of everything that's happening in and around the store at all times. To be able to put together security plans, typically we would start with a satellite image and take a look at some of the different kinds of security hardware that would be available, such as visual surveillance. Here, we're really looking for a situational awareness. That is, maybe cameras that feature something between 8 to 10 megapixels, which is a resolution density that would give a strong indication of any activity happening around the store perimeter. This could be enough to zoom in on license plates in a parking lot or be aware of anyone that might be approaching the site perimeter. From there, we designate certain areas within the retail dispensary as certain zones. We'd have staff-only areas, secure storage areas where cannabis products are stored and have no public access. And further, we might limit that access to maybe just managers as opposed to managers and bud tenders. Towards the front of the store, we'd have a customer area that's already been age gated, and the front of the area could be a public area where people under the age of 21 might be able to access and age gating might occur. We then look at assigning different alarm perimeters for each of these areas. For instance, you might not necessarily need to have employees in your secure storage at all times. As a result, it might be nice to have an alarm partition there that keeps that area alarmed and activated at all times. So if there was a breach during working hours, an alarm would go off and staff would be notified to the breach. Here's some typical camera layouts that we see in dispensaries. We've got two cameras here, a very different style, being used, one to monitor any activity in and around the sales floor. That is the first camera on the left, which is a fish eye dome camera. It's hung pendant style from the ceiling above the point of sale. And behind the bud tender, we've got a dome style camera that has vision on everything that's happening at the point of sale station and captures the face of the customer who's at the point of sale conducting the transaction. Different kinds of display cases are often borrowed from different industries. So in cannabis, we typically see the same kinds of display cases that would be used in pawn shops and jewelry stores. These typically feature a smash-resistant glass, either with a coating or very thick pane glass, with locked drawers underneath for the convenient storage of cannabis products that might be featured within the display case. In the manager's or security's office would offer another viewing point for all cameras around the store for increased situational awareness. Here, we'd keep things like employee records, and inventory control, and even ordering would happen here. Any off-duty staff might be here as well to hang their coats, enjoy their lunch during their break, and effectively where employee schedules might be posted. In terms of door security, we have different levels of door security that we can consider when implementing a security system. The most standard kind is a barrel lock, which has an attack side and a safe side. This door would feature a door contact, so that if, for instance, the door is left ajar or open, the security system would not be able to be activated. It would show that there's a door that's alarmed or not closed, and that would encourage staff to do a walkthrough before being able to leave for the day and activate the alarm system. We can increase this level of security by implementing something like a card reader with either a 1 or 2 factor identification, such as a fob swipe and a unique PIN code for each employee in each fob, that controls access into certain key areas. This could be a doorway to the manager's office that requires a card swipe and PIN code. Once the proper credentials are entered, the electric strike there would shunt the door contact, and allow ingress into the controlled area, which again could be a manager's office or a secure storage area. And then in a delivery area, we can also increase that security on top of the 2 cameras that would be over top of this doorway with a video doorbell intercom to allow for 2-way communication with anyone that might be approaching a back door to help facilitate a delivery. Identification can be confirmed from a conversation happening with someone outside of the back door before they're allowed to open the door or before someone goes to check to see who's rung the doorbell. When it comes to secure storage rooms, we like to borrow a lot from, for instance, FBI evidence rooms to make them extremely tamper-proof and theft-proof. This can include reinforcing the walls with a hardening material such as plywood or even a metal mesh. We want to make sure that we have basically an area around all the doors where we don't have any electrical outlets, windows, or vents to prevent any kind of unauthorized access. And we like to feature things like pass-throughs to eliminate sight lines from the retail store area. This can also help to mask the number of employees that might be working in the back area and hide from the public how much product might be stored at any given one time. Another important component for your operations will be the SOPs, and technical document writing is something you certainly excel at. SOPs for all your day-to-day operations will be required and certainly reviewed as part of your regular audits that the OCM will be conducting. The OCM has senior compliance and enforcement teams that will come by to verify that things like sanitation records have been properly filled out, which are forms that are attachments to your SOPs. Or that you know what to do in the event of a recall. That is, maybe a product is mislabeled and released from a manufacturer that has perhaps the wrong potency information. That product could later be recalled from the manufacturer. And in that case, you need to have a procedure in place for your budtenders to follow so that the sales of that product cease, the product is quarantined, and then returned back to the manufacturer from whence it came. Here's an example of some pass-throughs in a secure storage room. This is on the safe side. So again, on the inside of the secure storage area. One of the things I would like to point out is that you have no sight lines from the inside of the secure storage area to the front of the store and vice versa. To be able to monitor any activity, there's a visual surveillance monitor at the back of the store to be able to keep eyes for any staff on any activities that are happening in and around the store. This helps to hide how much product is in a store at a given time, and also helps to hide the amount of staff that might be actually working there. In terms of build-out costs, this is the common question we get all the time. For a higher-end retail build-out, you're probably looking at a range of about $90 to $290 per square foot for a retail dispensary. Right, so you want to factor this in when planning out your business. This can involve a minimum budget of anywhere between $125,000 to $350,000. We've definitely seen this below that minimum budget, and you can definitely go above, but I would say the lowest I probably have seen is still in the 6 figures. When it comes to basic build out from a white box, you want to make sure you're reserving somewhere between $50 to $150 per square foot. That includes HVAC, plumbing, drywall, painting, electrical. From the flooring side, you can be looking at anywhere from $10 to $30 per square foot. Lighting, $5 to $20. Fixtures, furnishings, custom cabinetry, shelves, countertops, anywhere from $10 to $40 per linear foot. Security can be in the range of $5 to $15 per square foot, and typically ends up being in the range of $20,000 to $30,000 for a retail dispensary. And then from signage and branding, an additional $5 to $15 per square foot would get tacked onto that budget. All right, when it comes to security and software, this again is a very, very important component for building a compliant store. Subdivision 12 prohibitions. 6, sell cannabis plants, flower, or cannabis products if the cannabis retailer knows that any of the required security or statewide monitoring systems are not operational. And to speak more about how compliance software is really important for proper operations, I'll hand it back over to Chris.
Thanks, Lucas. And again, my name's Chris Reid, head of sales and partnerships here at Cova Software. Excited to talk to you about considerations for opening a retail in Minnesota, as viewed from our perspective at helping launch over 2,000 dispensaries or cannabis retailers across North America. So over that time, we've gotten a lot of insight into what works, what doesn't, where some challenges are, and it's put us in a position to offer some advice on how to approach this challenge. So little qualification about us and why you might want to listen to some of what we have to say. We've been in the cannabis space again for 8 years at this point, going on 9. We've had the same leadership in place for the entire time. Picked up some awards along the way, most recently an MJ this past year for Tech Company of the Year. So very excited about that. We're the #1 point of sale in North America unless you combine brands. Our biggest competitor has a couple of them. If you combine them, we're #2. And one of the things that we've really prided ourselves on is our support and our onboarding process, as well as our uptime, which is important. We'll touch on that here. Briefly, gratuitous slide from the MJs. Just a horrible picture, though. So we'll move on. So, when it comes to cannabis, one of the things to keep in mind is that this is a hard industry. It's challenging for a number of reasons that other industries don't necessarily face or don't face to the same extent. One of those, I would say kind of the top aggravating factor in the space is the cost and the complexity of staying compliant. And some of these other challenges relate to the point of sale in your cannabis retail as well. So Lucas spoke about taxation, accounting, inventory control. All of those have some extra challenges when it comes to the cannabis space, and having the right systems in place for your business can help mitigate against that, as well as give you some peace of mind and give you some of your time back as well, because the more of these challenges you try and undertake through manual effort, the more time you're going to be spending not engaging with your customers, not building familiarity with your employees or helping educate them or really enhancing that customer experience. So when we consider cannabis retail, it can be helpful to think of point of sale as the central nervous system. It says the heart works too. I like to think of it as the central nervous system. It's really powering all of the ancillary technologies that you might have in your business. So for example, if you have e-commerce, well, it's probably being fed by your point of sale and your inventory control system, right? So it can also be helpful for those of you that are kind of new to retail and really being brought into this space from your passion for cannabis. It's really helpful to think of inventory as, money you haven't made yet. So it's really important to manage that effectively. In cannabis, we have this extra burden because that management of the inventory is scrutinized and can be audited at any point in time. And you have to have records on hand, as well as those that you submit up to the state, showing that you are running a compliant cannabis retail. So ideally, you have a system in place that's going to help you with all of these components, right? The compliance reporting, the inventory management, as well as managing your staff and your business. So point of sale really kind of checks those marks, and that's why it can be really helpful to vet those systems properly. And I always encourage people, I'm very biased, obviously, being part of Cova. I think we're the best retail solution for most cannabis retailers, but don't take my word for it. Check out my competitors, go through demos, vet the various systems that are available to you to help, because this is such an important and crucial part of your dispensary. And I agree with everything that Lucas presented. The one thing that I would say is don't hesitate to engage point of sale companies a little bit earlier in the process as well, right? When Lucas is talking about SOPs as they relate to things like inventory control and accounting and taxes, it can be helpful to spec in what systems you're going to be using for that. And obviously for your regulatory business plan, kind of fleshing all of that out can provide some benefit as well. And depending on what company you're working with, having access to the teams can be helpful too. So for example, if you're working with Cova, we're not going to start charging you a recurring monthly fee until you're operational, but that doesn't mean you don't have access to our team to ask questions, or, hey, where are we going to need to have wired setups, and where can we be wireless? Stuff like that. So when it comes to retail compliance in the state of Minnesota, a couple of really important things to keep in mind. Now, these seem obvious, but remember that you have to also impart this knowledge to your staff to make sure that they know what all of the rules are as well. So never make assumptions about what people know and what people are allowed to do on the retail side of this. So obviously you're going to need to make sure, and Lucas referenced it a number of times with that age gating, you have to make sure that everyone who enters the selling floor of your business is 21 years of age or older, right? So you're going to want to have some systems in place to make sure of that. And then you're going to need to enforce some purchase limits. So if adults over the age of 21 or 21 and older are allowed to have 2 ounces of flour, 8 grams of concentrate, and edibles up to 100 milligrams of THC, you can't be the person who sells them more than that, right? Or you're committing a crime. So you need to make sure that your staff is enabled with tools that help prevent that from happening. And then, of course, you need to make sure that you're only selling those products that have been approved for sale. So the benefit of track and trace systems is that they're going to help you know that, right? It's easy to identify the products that have been approved for sale. So how should you rely on your point of sale to help keep you compliant in Minnesota? Now, there are different systems that provide different features, and not all of them have everything. So again, it's really important to vet all of the systems and make sure that you're using one that's going to help lower your burden for staying compliant and give you more automation, so that you have a little bit more peace of mind that everyone in your business can help keep you compliant. It's not about what the most savvy employee can do to help keep you compliant. If you think about and I'll just put it bluntly, your least capable employee, they also have to keep you compliant, right? So make sure you've got systems in place that make that easy for them. And when we're talking about that, you should have some kind of system in place that's going to help you enforce purchase limits, preferably with some kind of visual guide for your staff, so that they know that they can still upsell, because you're still trying to make money here, right? You're going to want to have systems in place that are going to take the guesswork out of verifying those IDs. So you got to scan them, make sure that the ID is valid, but also that the person is of age, right? And then with the inventory tracking, you're going to likely want to work with a system that's going to automate all of that reporting up to the state. Every single product, every single transaction, there needs to be a record and a report of all of it. You're going to want to work with a system that's going to take that off of your plate, so you're not doing that manually. And to do that, the platform should integrate with the state traceability platform. So it's, the compliance stuff is obviously a bit hairy and can be daunting, but there are tried and true systems that have been put in place across many states and markets across North America. So there's not a lot of guesswork, right? There's definitely proven track records. And again, we're not the only option in town. Working with the system that's going to automate this stuff is important. Working with one that's also going to provide for a seamless experience in, for your customers is also important, because you want to provide a standout customer experience, right? And your point of sale relates directly to that customer experience. It might not seem like it, but if you start with considering, where does a customer experience start? And it starts long before they ever walk through the doors of your dispensary, right? It starts with how they discover you and how easily they discover you. A lot of people will discover dispensaries, especially at the beginning of the market, by Google searching dispensary near me, right? But over time, they might start looking for Tikal Headbanger Boogie near me, or they might be looking for Green Dot Labs concentrates, or any of these specific products. So you want to make sure that you're discoverable, not only based on your proximity to a customer and your Google My Business listing, but also based on the menu that you've curated, so that you're obviously curating that for a specific customer base. Those are the customers you want to attract. You want to work with a point of sale that's going to make it easy for that menu to be communicated to whatever you're using to establish your online presence, so that that menu is going to help generate new customers for you and help people find you. When we talk about the age verification process, there are seamless processes and there are pretty clunky experiences that people have had as well. So are you working with a system that's going to make that seamless and make it comfortable experience for your customers? When you're scanning their IDs, if they're stored in your system, are you working with a platform that's going to help you acknowledge that customer based on their past experiences with you? In other words, if you've taken notes on them and you know that they love Death Star, when they come in, are you going to tell them about how you just got a new drop last week, right? These are types of opportunities that you have as a retailer to stand out from your competition. So work with a system that's going to enable that, especially in the areas that are most important to you and the experience that you're trying to cultivate for the people who come into your business. If you have a queue or a waiting room, are you servicing people in the right order? Do you have a system that's going to enable that? Do you prioritize people who might have a med card? If so, are you going to be able to identify them as having a med card? And is that queuing system going to allow you to identify them easily so you can serve them first, right? And then the list goes on and on. Educated consumers spend more, right? Are you working with a platform that's going to help you provide education to your customers about the product, and not just in unique fashion with every transaction? Are you providing consistent knowledge? If you have, Lucas talked about, you have up to 5 locations on some of these licenses. Are you going to have consistent? Are you going to speak about products consistently across all of those locations? McDonald's isn't McDonald's because they have the best hamburger. They're McDonald's because they provide a consistent and predictable experience. People know what they're going to get and they know the value that they're going to get it at. Make sure that you're providing that consistent experience. So if you're speaking to Cal Headbanger Boogie at location 1, when somebody's talking about at location 3, their explanation should be pretty similar. And definitely I think there's a lot of value in enabling your staff or giving them permission to offer their experience with a product in addition to that educational component. But when you're educating consumers, it should be about the facts of that product. We all have different endocannabinoid systems. We all are going to experience these products differently. So don't, try to avoid setting the expectation of what someone's experience is going to be, outside of saying, hey, maybe I had this experience, but here are the facts about the product. Right? So work with a system that's going to enable that type of education in your retail establishment. Is the checkout process smooth? And can it happen? I know that sounds kind of tongue in cheek, but there are platforms in this space who have regularly gone down on some of the most important retail days of the year. In cannabis, one of those days is 420, right? We talk a lot about 420. And yeah, absolutely. There's higher volume, there's higher stress on systems during 420. People have tried to position that as an understandable reason that those systems have gone down. Point of sale exists for high volume days, It's there because of the volume. So the higher the volume, the more necessary the system is. Work with a platform that has a track record of staying up on those most important days. Because when your systems go down, it's not just about the transactions that you miss out on while that platform is down and you're unable to operate. It's all of the people who are going to shop for another 2 years with you that aren't going to do that because they came in on the most important retail day of the cannabis year and they weren't able to buy products from you. So it's not $10,000, it's $100,000, right? You have to understand the impact that that's going to have on your reputation as well. And that's where we start getting into some of the intangibles that drive that cost up through the roof, especially if it happens regularly. So make sure you're working with a platform that's going to take precautions in advance of outlier retail days and protect you and protect those transactions as well as those relationships with those lifetime value customers. And work with systems that are going to give you access to your data and help you use that data to make informed decisions for your business. You don't want to just order every product that's on the market. That's not feasible. And you're not going to provide a very curated or customized experience for your customers if you're doing that. And it's economically unfeasible. So work with a platform that's going to help you identify which products do our customers like the most, which products are underselling. And then you can circle back to that education component and help your staff educate consumers on those products if they're not selling very well and they're a product you really believe in, or they might help you identify the products that you're not going to reorder. This is a highly competitive market or a highly competitive industry. We see margins get compressed, especially as the industry matures in new markets. You're going to want to get in front of that by making sure that you have the right products and that you're selling them at the right prices. So work with systems that are going to help you identify that. And again, uptime. It's in all caps because it's that important. Work with systems that aren't going to let you down when you need them the most. And make sure that you have support from the platforms that you're using as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. So when you're shopping for point of sale, what should you consider? I'm throwing a lot of stuff out there. Let's break it down. One of the first things that I would encourage you to look at is, what does the leadership look like? Is it consistent? Is it stable? Or have there been a lot of changes? If there are a lot of changes, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Just seek to understand why those changes have occurred and make sure that things are going in the right direction. Consistent leadership speaks to stability. Stability speaks to dependability. And you want a system that's going to be there for the long haul. You're not going to want to switch your point of sale every year, right? That change management can become very distracting and problematic. Are they putting compliance first? Is compliance important to them? It's really kind of the name of the game in cannabis point of sale. So make sure that it is. That reliability and uptime, I'm not going to beat that dead horse anymore, but it's important. And work with the platform that's going to scale with your plans. If you are planning to be at 5 locations, don't vet your point of sale just for one location. Are they going to be able to offer you economies of scale? As you grow your business, is your price per location going to go down with them in consideration of the fact that you have more locations? Not all of the platforms out there can offer the same economies of scale. Are they going to provide visibility across all 5 locations? Do you have to be on site to access dashboards or to access reports for all of your businesses? Those types of things can become problematic. You're going to want to work with a platform that's going to give you the visibility you require across all of your locations. So if you're planning to grow your business, and I know most people who enter this space are, make sure you're working with a platform that can grow with you and enable that growth. Are they providing a platform that's easy to learn and easy to use? You will have turnover. It's a big problem in the cannabis space, something we're working on improving, collectively across the industry. But we do see higher turnover in cannabis retail than in a lot of other verticals. So it's all the more important to have a platform that's really easy to use and easy to learn. And again, that back end reporting, it is your platform. Your point of sale has all of this data, or it should. Are they providing it to you? And are they doing it in a way that feels right? That hopefully they're not selling your data or providing access to your data to unauthorized people, obviously. But are they making it easy for you to digest and use that data to make informed decisions for your business? And then some of the basic stuff, right? Like partner ecosystems. If you want to have your point of sale integrated with a specific piece of technology, can they do that? Are they built on an open API architecture? Do they allow for integrations? What does the cost look like? There should probably be one if it's not a partner integration, but hopefully it's not preventative. So ask these questions in advance so that you don't find yourself in a situation where you've got a system you like, but all of a sudden you can't bolt on all of the other systems that you want to use. And then make sure that you're working with a company that's going to support you. You know, it's not about support when you don't need help. It's about support when you do. So you don't need all the niceties. You need somebody to pick up the phone when there's a fire. Make sure that that is going to happen. There are some platforms out there that have ticketing systems. That's probably not going to be what you're looking for in those situations. There are companies out there that do all of their support electronically via chatbots or email. That might not be what's right for you. Maybe it is. Consider it, right? Look into these things. Make sure that you're asking these questions as you're evaluating your point of sale options. As far as Cova, shameless plug for our customer support. This is something that we put a lot of intentionality behind. We track the KPIs on this. We make sure that we're executing when it comes to customer support. So if you were to call customer support line, you can do it right now. You're going to be talking to someone in about 15 seconds, less than 11 right now. And 75% of our calls are resolved on the first call, meaning nobody even needs to call back and say, hey, we figured it out, right? So these are things that are important to consider. If support's important to you, make sure that you're vetting your companies or your vendors for their ability to support you and your staff. And make sure that they're spending time before you launch, helping you understand how to use the system, getting things set up and configured for your business. You're going to have enough going on that you don't want to take on work that other people should be doing for you, if that makes sense. All right. Well, not the most articulate today. I apologize for that, but I really appreciate your time. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to chat with any of you. I love speaking about anything related to cannabis, anything related to cannabis retail. Thanks so much. I believe Lucas has some more slides, so I'm going to pass it back to you, Lucas.
Chris, that was great. Appreciate the insight and the expertise you've been sharing with us. That was really helpful. And I'm really surprised to learn about some new information that I think I always learn every time I hear you speak. So going back to the initial application, once you've got a conditional license in hand, we're going through that process of converting that provisional license into the final license. Obviously, conversations with guys like Chris are going to be very, very important. Chris or somebody else from this team. A bunch of honing in on other documents is going to be required, especially as more and more investors are brought into the conversation and the cap table adjusts. That's one of the great things about starting a business is that you have equity you can sell to help raise capital. But anyone who's coming in to make a purchase of any equity will obviously have to be declared. And we'll want to start tightening up a lot of the other documents, the SOPs, and other important decisions that only come when you start to operationalize your business and by building out your stores. Other compliance challenges that are worth mentioning are state oversight. So again, the OCM has compliance and enforcement teams that will conduct regular audits and inspections, and those regulations will tend to evolve as the industry operates. So making sure that you're staying on top of them is important. SOPs will continue to have to be adapted and adjusted and reviewed for complexity, reviewed for ease of use and accuracy, as well as the associated forms will have to be shown that you're actually filling those forms out and using them when you're inspected. Implementing your seed to sale tracking software is going to be super important, and that software does need to also link with the state-run track and trace system. Security compliance, as your store maybe expands and builds out, you'll have to make sure that you're covering those areas with visual surveillance and your security system is adaptable and scalable as your business changes. Product testing remains important for all different kinds of products that will be available on the shelves of retailers. And of course, complying with labor rules is a very important component. There are consequences to not being compliant. Those can range from monetary consequences, depending on the kind of infraction or the incidence. It could be anywhere from a slap on the wrist to a $10,000 fine per violation, right? Civil lawsuits and criminal charges are also a possibility. And certain consequences from the state that could be brought down on you include license suspensions, or in some severe cases, even license revocation. So non-compliant products can be detained and labeled. If products violate regulations, they can be destroyed, or even court action can happen to recover seized goods. So having a compliant point of sale system helps prevent any kind of inversion, but also any kind of diversion as well. And of course, when it comes to retail registration, having a conversation with the state to ensure that you've got a license to do business is paramount. But then the conversations you have at the local level with municipalities are also very important. You'll have to look at things like zoning restrictions, setback distances, and even any rules around clustering or limits on the number of cannabis businesses within a particular area, as per section 342.22. In terms of local registration, you'll need to contact local government, prepare the required docs, submit local registration applications, and pay any applicable fees. This part of the registration is super important to make sure that you can actually book a final inspection with the OCM. Before signing a lease and executing on a location, it's very important to have conversations with the local government to ensure that the location that you want to operate in is compliant and that you'll receive a certificate of occupancy to be able to operate your business in that area. Failure to do so may mean that you could get trapped in a lease in a location that the OCM will never actually finally license. So having conversations with folks who can help to verify the zoning requirements have been satisfied might be one of your best bets. For the retail license, you can open up to 5 locations per license, max 1 city and 3 per county. And you can also hold a cannabis event organizer license and offer cannabis delivery services. And optional endorsements for your business can include medical cannabis retailer, edible cannabinoid product handler. The application fee that gets submitted with your application is a fee of $2,500. And once you're licensed, you'll have to pay a fee of $2,500 for your first year. The renewal fee every year will be $5,000 for that license. In terms of setback distances, we're looking at a setback distance of 1,000 feet to sensitive areas like schools and 500 feet to sensitive buildings like daycare centers, residential treatment facilities, public park attractions regularly used by minors, playgrounds, or athletic fields. And for local government, they can choose to regulate but not ban cannabis business operations. In terms of vertical integration, the retailer is allowed to vertically integrate with the delivery service. There are many others here, but we're really concerned on the delivery today, and any other combination of licenses is not allowed for a true party of interest. So if you hold interest in a cannabis retail dispensary, the only other vertical integration that's permitted is delivery service. When comparing the different kinds of dispensary licenses that are available, that could include, for instance, a microbusiness, which is no lottery, it's uncapped, but you're limited to 1 store. You can also be vertically integrated, but you can't do delivery with this license. The meso business, this is a lottery. There's a limited number of licenses, 100 total, 50 social equity. This allows up to 3 cannabis retail dispensaries. And again, you're not eligible for a delivery license, but you can be vertically integrated. And then finally, the true retailer license, which again is a lottery. There's 150 of these licenses available, 75 of which are going to social equity businesses, and allows you to open up to 5 cannabis retail dispensaries. This is eligible and combinable with a delivery license, but you're not vertically integrated. And if you're looking for more resources on starting a cannabis business in the state of Minnesota, we've got tons more information and several other Minnesota masterclasses available on YouTube. Now we're going to move over to the Q&A session, so stay put. We're going to take a short break. We're going to bring a couple of our panelists onto the stage and answer your questions here live.